The summer air in Willow Creek was thick with the scent of lilacs and the slow hum of cicadas. Down at the very end of Oak Street stood a small white house with green shutters, its paint faded by decades of rain and sun. This was where Margaret Bennett had lived for most of her life. She was almost 90 now, her days moving like a quiet river, flowing steadily past the smooth stones of joy and the jagged ones of sorrow. The morning light streamed through lace curtains, settling on her favorite armchair by the window. It was where she spent most of her days, wrapped in a faded quilt, her thin hands resting in her lap, her eyes wandering out to the street. She had children, grandchildren, neighbors who checked in, but the house still felt too big, too quiet. Of all the people she loved, there was one who had a special place in her heart: her grandson, Daniel. He was 30 years old, full of energy, with a laugh that could fill a room and a warmth that could melt even the coldest day. To Margaret, Daniel was like the sun, bright, constant, life-giving. He visited often, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with nothing but his smile. He'd tease her about her old radio, help her with the garden, or simply sit and drink coffee with her, telling her stories about work and friends. She felt lighter when he was around, as if the world itself were warmer. But one late autumn night, the sun went out. Daniel was driving home after a long shift when a car, speeding through the darkness, hit him and kept going. The road was empty, the air cold. By the time help arrived, there was nothing they could do. The news shattered his parents. Yet in the middle of their grief was another fear: their mother. Margaret's heart was fragile, her health uncertain. They couldn't bear the thought of breaking her with the truth. So they didn't. They told her Daniel had taken a job overseas. It's a good opportunity, they said. He might be gone for a long while, but he'd call when he could. Margaret smiled politely when they told her, but her eyes searched their faces. She had lived too long not to recognize when someone was hiding pain. Why didn't he say goodbye? Why hasn't he written? She began waiting for the mail every day, hoping for a letter. She kept her phone near the chair, ready for a call. At night, she'd leave the porch light on, as if it could guide him back. She would sit by the window in her quilt, the glow spilling over her shoulder, watching the street until her eyelids grew heavy as the months passed. The waiting became heavier. She dreamed of him often. In those dreams, Daniel appeared just as he had in life, smiling, but with an urgency in his eyes. Sometimes he reached for her. Sometimes he spoke words she couldn't quite hear. She'd wake up with her heart pounding, her pillow damp with tears. One morning over breakfast, she whispered to her daughter, "I had another dream last night. Danny was there. Something was wrong. He needed me." Her daughter squeezed her hand but didn't answer. The days grew shorter, the winter colder. Margaret moved less, spoke less. Her family noticed the change. The brightness in her face was fading, like the sun slipping behind a permanent cloud. Finally, they realized the lie had gone on too long. It hadn't protected her, had only left her alone in a fog she couldn't escape. So one crisp afternoon, under a pale sky, they told her they were taking her somewhere special. When the car slowed, she looked out the window and frowned. Ahead stood the wrought iron gates of Oakwood Cemetery. "Why are we here?" she asked softly. No one spoke. The gravel crunched under her cane as she stepped onto the path. The air felt still, the silence deep. She passed rows of headstones, each with its own story carved into stone. And then she saw a simple granite marker with a small oval photograph. Daniel's face, captured in a moment of joy, smiled back at her. Her breath caught. Her knees gave way, and she sank onto the cold grass. Her hands trembled as she touched the stone. "Oh, Danny," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. We couldn't keep you safe." She stayed there for a long time, the wind moving gently through the bare branches above. Her tears fell onto the soil, darkening it in small, uneven circles. From that day forward, the cemetery became her refuge. She visited often, bringing fresh flowers in the spring, sunflowers in the summer, and chrysanthemums in the fall. She talked to him about the weather, about the garden, about her aching knees, about the world that kept turning without him. But no matter what she said, she always ended the same way. "I miss you, Danny." Her family could see she was fading. The house felt emptier, even when it was full of people. The laughter that once rose so easily from her lips was gone. Her eyes held a faraway look, as if she were already walking some quiet road toward him. Still, she kept going, because the visits mattered. She believed he could hear her, and in some small way that kept the sun alive. The seasons turned again. One winter morning, a light snow fell across Willow Creek. Margaret's chair by the window sat empty. She didn't come to the cemetery that day or the next. By the end of the week, her family gathered once more at Oakwood, this time for her. They laid her to rest beside Daniel. The two stones stood side by side, the sunlight breaking through the clouds to touch them both. The air was still, but it felt warmer, as if the sun she had been chasing for so long had finally returned to her dot. In life, Margaret and Daniel had shared a love that didn't fade with distance or time. It was the kind of love that outlasts years, outlasts breath itself. Now, they were together, again, two lights, reunited. And if you stood there quietly, you might almost feel it, the warmth on your face, the glow in your chest. Love she had once told her daughter isn't measured by how many years you have together. It's measured by how deeply someone lives in your heart. And my Danny will live in mine forever.